Proportional Response, Book 1. Chapter 8, Part 7, Party Crashers. Galen sat in the human embassy and worked with Henry to put the final feathers in the nest of the treaty. He found himself admiring the human's willingness to give ground where he could, and hold firm where he couldn't. After a few hours, they'd finished the negotiation, but he found himself lingering. He and Henry had built an increased rapport today, and, by unspoken agreement, wanted to strengthen it. So they sat and talked of home, of the similarities and differences between their cultures, their species, and others. Henry continued to ply him with varieties of booze and to supply him, if he got a little too inebriated, with some miracle drug they had which broke the stuff down. The minutes turned to hours, and soon they realized they had gone from building rapport to waiting. They knew it was coming and had somehow decided they wanted to be together when it did. Their conversation took on a little bit of an edge. Their laughter became a little raw. "It is taking too long," he thought to himself for the 100th time. Could Henry have been wrong this time? "It is getting late. I should probably get back to my own office. Sky knows I have enough paperwork waiting for me. Still, I don't want to be caught in the hallway." Galen nearly jumped when he felt his leg vibrate. He heard an odd sing-song noise from Henry at the same moment. Both of them pulled out their local comms units and saw the same message. "By executive order of the Prime Minister, in order to ensure the safety and security of all sapients in the Council compound, it is formally decreed that mercenary guards for ambassadors. Failure to comply will result in sanction by the Executive Office to the fullest extent of the law." Galen read the text and shook his head ruefully. "I should know better than to help these humans, I guess." Henry chuckled and looked at the clock, then spoke. "Well, damn. Half an hour sooner, and I would have won the pool. That blowhard just cost me 5 cc's. He started and turned a sharp look on the human. "You would bet on a thing like this? I mean, you humans did call it, and I am glad that plans are in place, but—" Henry just shrugged. "We bet on everything here, but the money amount is required to be negligible. It is really more about bragging rights than the cash. That 5 CCS is barely enough to buy a meager lunch. There are things about you, humans, I hope I never come to understand." Henry laughed, as did the other humans who had begun to gather in the room. He couldn't help but laugh with them. Then the human turned serious, and Galen watched with interest as the man turned to one of the guards who had been with him in the Thermican embassy. "Lieutenant, are you and your people squared away and ready to go? No cold feet?" "We are ready, sir, and will do what is necessary." "Well, then why don't you all get changed, and we can take care of the details here, if that is agreeable to you, Ambassador." Galen stood and gave his most solemn nod. "I will be honored to use this space, my friend. I should call some witnesses from my embassy. Lieutenant, will an hour from now, right here, be acceptable to you and your men?" She smiled at him and nodded. She then saluted and turned to leave, gathering her soldiers with a glance. Inibal had to admit he was enjoying himself, against his better judgment. He swirled the wine in his cup and took a deep breath, enjoying the rich smell of the drink. He'd already had nearly as much as he should at this little party the humans were throwing, and he knew he had to keep himself sharp, just in case. No, not just in case. It may not have happened yet, but it is going to, and I don't even need the humans' nearly prescient ability to predict the Zoltans to know that. He looked out over the sea of faces in every imaginable hue and shape, all with great smiles on their faces, snouts, or beaks. Every smile seems genuine, and the conversation is flowing freely. A lot of it business, yes, but a lot of it is not. Actual cultural exchange, and forming of bonds of friendship. One of these gatherings looking like this would have been a laughable thought when I was an understudy here. Now though, he shook his head. The realization of what he saw hit him like a brick. How could I have been aware of this, been watching this happen through the years, and not understood what it meant, what the humans were doing? He looked out again over the grand ballroom and smiled. The humans were, of course, the hosts of this party. He still did not know how they managed to throw it together in the single day since the lizard invasion, as people had started to call it, despite the protests of the Prime Minister. But throw it together, they had. The party had gone on far longer than he thought it would. All these ambassadors together, all with their guards, from their own species and all gathered outside the human embassy. How could Kilintar resist? How could he let it stand? I wonder how many of these ambassadors. The doors crashed open and interrupted his thoughts. The music stopped in response. No, not in response. The music stopped a scant moment sooner than it should have. Well played, Henry, well played. With the music gone, he could hear the collective intake of breath from the ambassadors and their staffs. Kilintar strutted into the room, armed council guards streaming in and fanning out behind him. He walked to the middle of the floor, stared around with malevolence, and spoke. Nearly every one of you is guilty of violating council law by maintaining mercenary guards. He gestured expansively at the various armed humans in the room, each wearing the uniform of the ambassador they now served. By rights, I could have every one of you expelled in disgrace and sent home, but in these trying times, I am willing to make some allowances for the lot of you. I will not, however, stand for humans openly flouting the law. He made a sharp gesture to the men behind him, and they all brought their weapons to the ready. They still pointed at the ground, but they could bring them up and fire more quickly than even human reflexes could do anything about it. Probably.